Welcome, everyone. Welcome to an exciting opportunity to have a conversation with four of the most dynamic women in the surf industry that I know of. My name is Evelyn O'Doherty. I'm the publisher for Standup Journal magazine, and I couldn't be more honored to be here with these certain ladies. We're here today because for all of us, surfing is such a big part of our lives. And I think that everybody on this panel also feels that surfing is a metaphor, right, for so much in our lives. There are so many lessons that we learn in the ocean that we can also translate back into our daily lives. And one of the reasons why I think that women are true warriors is because we spend so much time out in the water, literally facing down our fears and choosing moment to moment what we're going to do about it. Today, I'm honored to introduce you to some of these ladies who have made a life experience of advocating for the ocean, of advocating for the environment, each in their own spectacular way. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as before we move forward. So ladies, please take a moment to introduce yourselves and just let us know who you are and what your greatest passion is, as well as what makes you so excited to be on this panel today. Let's start with you, Becky.
Well, good morning and thank you so much. It's an honor to be here among such powerhouse boss babes. My name is Becky Mendoza. I am an attorney. I run Action Sports Law Group. I've been working in the surf industry for the last 14 years. I'm also the executive director and co-founder of Changing Tides Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization based in Southern California that empowers women to protect the planet. So yeah, I'm just really excited to be having these conversations in such a large platform and really having these discussions that are so important to lift more women up and bring more women to the table in the sense of the surf industry, but then also talking about advocacy for the ocean and for the planet and all of its inhabitants.
Becky, thank you so much. And next we have Rhonda Harper from Black Girl Surf.
So I'm Rhonda Harper from Black Girl Surf. Black Girl Surf is a high performance training camp for girls 7 to 17 who wish to pursue professional surfing. We have a bunch of women's programs like our surf therapy programs and some outdoor programs that we're working on with hiking, yoga, and so forth. But at Black Girl Surf, we are trying to empower the next generation of surfers, the ones that you haven't seen, the hidden gems that have been waiting out there, the diamonds in the rough. And those are the girls that we're starting to find. And along with this, working with them on their training, we're working with them on their educational goals, who they want to be when they grow up, how they see the world and how the world judges them based on what they look like coming into the surf industry, coming into this new environmental realm for them. They're not used to it. So now we're teaching them beach cleanup. I just happen to be with Surfrider. I've been with them for on and off for the last maybe 13 years. And now I'm the diversity, equity, and inclusion director for Surfrider Mateo. Before that, I was commissioner, the chairperson for the Commission on Parks and Recreation. So I've been working with kids for well over 2 decades, just trying to empower that next generation to look beyond what they see in their particular area.
Rhonda, thank you so much. And speaking of powerhouses, next we have pro surfer Paige Alms.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paige Alms. I am a professional surfer and 2-time big wave world champion. I'm so excited to be on this panel with an amazing group of ladies. And I have had the privilege of traveling the world for my job for quite a few years now and getting little bits and pieces from every place that I have been and using that as a tool to advocate for our oceans and for our planet.
Amazing. Thank you, Paige. And last but definitely not least, we have sailor, surfer, environmental activist, author of Swell, and just a general global leader in so many ways, Liz Clark. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here with all of you. My name is Liz Clark, and when I was 25 years old, I set sail on a 40-foot sailboat from California and have been sailed the Pacific for about 10 years, searching for waves and at the same time advocating for the oceans and sharing the environmental issues I was seeing around on my voyage. And through that voyage, I've been able to become a voice for environmental change, positive change, and show people that, you know, on an individual level, we can have a big impact by looking at what we do in our own lives and making small changes. We can have really big impacts and influence others around us. And after writing my book and my book coming out in 2018, I decided to focus more on environmental activism, and have now I'm the executive director of a nonprofit here in Tahiti where I'm living now, Matairea, and we're focused on environmental protection, animal welfare, and youth empowerment. So got a lot of work going on down here, and I'm also on the board of Changing Tides Foundation. I work with Becky, and I've been on the board since we were founded 5 years ago. So been doing as much as I can. You know, I lived this big dream of mine to sail the world and surf all of these remote places, and now I just want to give back and do my best to make the world a better place.
So great. Thank you, Liz. Thank you for being here. You touched on Becky and the Changing Tides Foundation, which I just have so much respect for. I mean, Becky, you're central to this conversation about this, you know, what is this intersection of between women and their rise in surfing and this ability to make impact with regard to climate change. So can you just tell us a little bit about, like, what was your motivation to start the Changing Tides Foundation? Like, what's the backstory there?
So basically, I think initially it was born from the idea that, you know, we go to all these places and we take waves, and we wanted to do more than just take waves. We wanted to give back. And also in that same right, leave the places we visit, you know, the same as we found them or better than we found them if we could. So I used to take water filters with me on surf trips. It was really easy to just shove water filters in my bags. I'm a very social person, so it was like really a great way for me to connect with individuals and locals in the places I was visiting. My background is I'm Cuban American, and so I grew up in Miami. My parents both emigrated from Cuba, and I'm fluent in Spanish, so it became like really easy for me to communicate with people in Spanish-speaking countries. So you know, I started distributing water filters more and more as I would, you know, do that sort of work. I was documenting and had friends, you know, asking, how can I get involved? How can I do what you're doing? And, you know, when you move beyond just something like water and something actually happens to a community that you're visiting, one of the communities I had done water filters with got hit by a really strong hurricane. So I went there right after the hurricane, and I realized that there was so much more to do than just water. And I think that's where the birth of Changing Tides came. It was, you know, a desire to do something on a bigger scale based on the needs that exist in the communities we were visiting. So it started as a travel focused organization. I kind of called some of my best friends that are also besties with Lizzie as well, and kind of said, hey, I had this idea and it's not going to work unless all of us are in. And everybody was very much feeling like, this is what's next. This is, you know, what we want to do together. And so that was the birth of Changing Tides. And it has since evolved and become so much more than what it initially started as. We started as travel-based. We're not necessarily travel-based anymore. Our mission changed last year to empowering women to protect the planet rather than this kind of other complex, you know, global mission that we had. We kind of honed in on what we were actually doing. And more, it was like we were being called to collaborate with NGOs in different places, and band together to say, okay, well, what can we contribute to your mission and what you're doing? And more, we were being called to empower the girls. It was, we have sports programs, but when maybe because of cultural differences or cultural norms and societal norms, the girls weren't encouraged to participate with the boys after a certain age, let's say. So, we would come in and do something that was female specific and working with like the teenage girls. And so we developed a program called WAMP, which is Women's Outreach Mentorship Program, which we've run in El Salvador, in Peru, in Panama, in Dominican Republic, and we're actually developing a program here in the United States now, which is very exciting for us. So, the evolution of Changing Tides has been a really beautiful thing to watch flourish. And it's been also, it's created an interesting opportunity to like educate about the environmental impacts of of what's going on in our world today and how we can be stewards of the sea and do what we can to protect our playground. So what better way, right? We're like surfers, the first line of defense, and we're seeing the trash, right? We're at the beach, we're seeing it floating around, we're seeing the currents pulling it away. We're sifting it through the sand. And so, when we're bringing girls into the water, we're using it as an opportunity not only to empower these girls and to educate these girls about how therapeutic the ocean can be and how beautiful surfing can be, and how if we work together as women, we can really lift each other up rather than compete with each other. And then also take that opportunity to say, and we're, everything's mother, right? So it's Mother Ocean, Mother Earth, Mother Nature. There's this feminine that really is just ingrained into, into the outdoors, right? And so us as women, I feel we have a responsibility and a duty to nurture and protect where we play and protect what we love. And so it's been a very centric message in our programs to really educate the girls that we work with about other issues as we're bringing them into the surf. So other issues like the environment, like our own bodies, our hormones, and different things that, different ways we can interact with one another and different ways we can support one another. So yeah, so that's kind of the backstory of Changing Tides. We're all surfers. We all came together as women surfers and found that power and that beauty. I think all of us surfed with mostly men before. And then we found each other and we're like, whoa, this is really powerful. Like women surfing together, and not just with the surf buddies, like just the surf dudes. It was like, all of a sudden it was like, took it to this whole new level. So being able to cultivate that and take that into this really important work that we're doing across the globe has just been the most important work I've ever done in my life.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm just thinking about that theme of women coming together, especially in the surf, right? Like that sort of changes things. I always say myself, like, don't let the boyfriend teach you how to surf, right? You need like a woman needs another woman to really have that understanding. And so I'm just going to ask this general question to the panel, like, how does it impact yourself or impact women in general, do you think, when women come together to learn how to surf? And how does that conversation that takes place in the water around surfing maybe, have an ability to move outside the water, into life, like creating that surfing sisterhood that Becky's talking about is so amazing. So for this conversation that we're having around, environmentalism and sustainability and climate change, but the conversation starts in the water, right? So what is your thoughts? And anybody can answer this. What are your thoughts with regard to what happens when women come together for like a purpose like this, that is, learning how to surf together, which is so empowering? Anybody?
I'll say for myself, my sisterhood comes from having the right people surrounding you. If you have the right people surrounding you, then you bond and you create this sisterhood. If you have the wrong people around you, and no matter if they're male or female, that energy gets sucked out. That passion that you felt the morning that you got in the car and you decided to go to the beach to be in the water. See, for me, the actual water is more important than who I surround myself with. But if I'm going to be in the water and create a sisterhood, I need to be comfortable with the people that are around me. I need to have that trust. I'm from the Coast Guard. So, we're always protecting each other in the water. That's our main goal. So if you have people around you, they need to be your lifesavers, just in case something. I know Paige understands this. She's a big wave surfer. So you have to have people around you that can save you when you are down. And if you don't have the right people around you, whether they're male or female, especially if you have a group of women, they have to be a group of the right women who connect with you. And like Becky said, you empower them and you lift them up. You don't grab onto their ankle and you don't pull them down. So for me, it's very important that I trust and feel comfortable with people that I get in the water with.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rhonda. And just thinking about that, I mean, Rhonda, you put women in the water in a similar fashion than what Becky does, but it's also for a very different purpose, right? Like you're putting specifically Black women in the water, teaching them how to surf, bringing them together for that experience. What where does that go for you? Where do you want to take that with regard to just having more women in the water, women of color in the water together? Like where is that growing to in your view?
So currently, and Paige can understand
Right.
this right now, I'm always 7 years ahead of my time. So 7 years ago, I'd been working on the Africa Surf International. And so in November, the Simone Pro Am is scheduled to launch. So we've actually acquired license from the WSL to hold the very first all women's contest with the staffing of all people of color and women, to showcase and start to train behind the scenes people of color so that they can go into positions like cameraman or coach or priority judge or head judge. I mean, right now, our contest director is a 3 times champion from South Africa, Tash Mantasti. So this is a kind of collective group that we have right now putting together this contest for the WSL. And there's some stuff going on in South Africa right now, but we're scheduled to launch in November, and that's the plan. But if you don't move forward, we can all sit around and complain about what's wrong. But until we turn the doorknob at the big offices and walk in and say, this is what we need, we're all going to stay in the same spot. So I made that decision to walk into the WSL and say, what can I do? Mm-hmm. And I'm here to assist you in any way that I can. And so now we have the Simone Pro.
Wow, right? That's fantastic. And I just, I want to throw the next question over to Paige because it just sort of rolls right over there, right? So now we're talking about professional surfing, right? Women in professional surfing in the water, and how that also, right, branches out into other areas of life, just giving people skills to move on with life. And, and Paige, you've been a part of just something so incredible. Like I feel lucky to have been alive to witness the rise in women's professional surfing. And you've been such a huge part of that. Just for example, some of the viewers may not know, Paige Alms is, at least partially responsible for having women included in the big wave surf contests, and Paige herself is 2-time world champion, or is it 3-time world champion? I think it's 3, right? It's 3-time world champion. With regard to winning it's 2, okay, winning the big wave surf contest, which is just amazing. So when you paddle out, into the large surf, Paige, I mean, that's got to be quite an experience. And, certainly, as what Rhonda said about having the right people around you is so important, but also like what is some of that fear that you experience out there, and how do you more importantly, how do you overcome it, right? So what is the experience of fear and how do you overcome that in that situation?
Yeah, well, to touch on what Becky and Rhonda have both spoken about so far, just having the right people around you. and being able to bring up others around you. And I feel like that's very empowering for yourself too, to give that to others. And in the big wave game, it's pretty unique in the sense that, you know, you get all these highlights and, you know, trophies and special moments riding these waves that are, you know, it's you on these waves and you're celebrated. But in order to get to that place and to ride those waves and to compete in those events and to go through all of that, you have to have a team. And you cannot ride big waves without a team, whether that's literally just going out with a handful of your friends and they're your support team. And they're the people that you're relying on to save you if something bad goes wrong, and or the people that you just need around you to cheer you up and to encourage you. You know, we're not all out there just dominating every session. You have sessions where sometimes you're not finding the waves, and that can be frustrating. So having the right people around you is really important in all aspects of life, but I feel truly in big wave scenarios. So back to the topic of fear, I have found that having everything in place and safety and going through the what ifs really helps eliminate that risk factor. You know, like if something really goes wrong, knowing that we have a plan in place, and if the worst case scenario were to happen, that we have a plan set up to get us to, you know, to the hospital or to a paramedic or to the boat, whatever that may be. Having that all set up ahead of time has really helped with the fear factor. And, you know, when you're actually out in the lineup, when you're paddle surfing big waves, it's really just you. Like, for sure, you're surrounded at Jaws, for example, you're surrounded by 50, 60 people in the lineup on a really big day, which can be quite overwhelming. But if you're going to ride a wave, it's going to come down to what you've gone through in your life to learn and position yourself just perfectly to be able to ride a wave. And sometimes it might just be one wave. And so going through fear just with the ocean, I mean, that's a whole different thing, because, you know, looking at a 60-foot wave coming at you, it is absolutely terrifying. And I've definitely had my fair share of moments where it, you know, it happens so quickly, but it is so impactful and so ingrained in my memory of what do I do now? And it's really turning that split second internally into what am I going to do about it? And, you know, you can be just stopped in your tracks of, oh my God, I'm going to die. Or you can switch that into a positive mindset of, I can handle this. And it's a very unique, I guess, technique, but not a technique, but an internal dialogue with yourself that I feel all surfers have. But in big wave surfing, when it comes down to something that is absolutely life-threatening, it is imperative for you to go to that positive place in your mind and be able to just, you know, reflect on everything that you've done ahead of time and know and trust in your body and what the universe and the ocean has in store for you. And I try to use those practices in my day-to-day life. You know, we all go through our ups and downs throughout the day or the week or the month or the year, and just trying to transform that, you know, those negative thoughts or that energy. You know, it's not really serving anyone. It's not serving yourself. And I truly believe that if you can make a conscious effort to change that, it's pretty amazing what can happen, you know? Oh, I got this 60-footer, no big deal. I can hold my breath. I'll be fine. And you're underwater getting thrashed around, but knowing that you're going to be okay. And, you know, if the absolute worst case scenario were to happen, you know that your sisters, your brothers, you know, your family out in the lineup has got your back, because that's what it all comes down to, sharing these experiences with other people and living the lives that we do. It's about how your connection with others around you, you know, these split second moments of highlight reels that you have surfing are just like a minute thing if you're not sharing them with people that that you care about.
Mm. Wow, that was so powerful. Thank you. Yeah, there's so much in that conversation, and I'm going to kick it over to Liz, because I think Liz also knows something of fear, right? Of being able to, I mean, so Liz has traveled thousands and thousands and thousands of miles on her sailboat solo, right? And sometimes with people, but there's also been that experience, I'm sure, where you've had moments of just question, what's going to happen here? How is this going to unfold? And, can you relate one of those experiences to us, and just like Paige did, tell us how, what your mindset is and how you get past it?
Yeah, I think like Paige said, my strategy is always to prepare as best as you can when you're going to set out on an ocean passage. You really want to, I always made sure I took the time to, comb over my boat and make sure everything was in the best shape possible. Everything is tied down properly, no corners being cut, because any shortcut you take is bound to come back and haunt you when you're out there and something happens that's unpredicted, and you have to deal. Traveling on the ocean, being a surfer, you have to deal with the unknown all the time. And I think that you have to develop a certain confidence in yourself to be able to deal with that, whatever's going to come up. And I think for me, it was a process over time. It didn't happen overnight. I went down the coast first and gained my confidence as a captain little by little. And I started with people on my boat. And then eventually I felt ready to try to cross an ocean on my own. And of course, there was fear. I think a little bit of fear is actually a really healthy and important thing when you're going out to do something that does involve risk, because it has you prepare, it has you question yourself, it has you make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you get yourself out into something risky and extreme. And I think for me, it's also been when I've been in situations like when I was doing a big passage from Kiribati back to French Polynesia. It was a 1,500-mile passage, and I was doing it by myself, and I got into some really bad weather, and I was low on food and really, really tired. I hadn't been able to sleep for, almost 3 days because the weather was just so crazy, and had to make sail adjustments and fix things that were breaking. And, I think what I learned through that experience is that we have an idea of our capacity at a certain place. And when we find ourselves in those positions, we realize that we have a much deeper reserve than we realize is there. And I think when we do allow ourselves to dip into that reserve and realize how much stronger we are than we thought, originally, that has really carried over into so many other things in my life after making it to the other side of that passage.
That's such a great story. Thank you, Liz. So all of that brings us to this conversation, right? About how when all of you are activists with regard to the environment, certainly passionate about climate change, for being lovers of the ocean, lovers of the water. And, when we're looking at climate change, it really is an unknown, right? We don't know what's going to happen. So that can bring up some fear. And, how do we manage that, right? As women, how do we, one of the conversations we had previously was, how do we manage that same fear in our business lives, right? In our friendships, in our, personal relationships? and specifically here, moving forward as women who have a mission, you know, what are the ways to overcome that uncertainty? And, you know, yeah, I'll leave it with that. What are the ways to overcome that uncertainty with regard to your personal business or, you know, activity here? What are some of the ways that you overcome that fear?
I think going back to the sisterhood and surrounding yourself with people who bring you up, I think that's something for me personally that has been so powerful, was when, you know, I'm having these people, these women in my life who, you know, our relationship goes beyond something that, you know, a romantic relationship. It's something you can really depend on through thick and thin. I think that that has really helped me feel like I will be supported and I will have someone understand me no matter what I'm going through in my life. And that has made me so much more confident to pursue, you know, this whole new world of nonprofit and trying to actually, you know, create local positive change. It's a whole different domain for me. And so, but, you know, having that network of sisterhood and having the experience that I've had with Becky and changing tides, and you know, it's really given me so much confidence to say, like, if you want to do it, just dive in, and you're always going to have this network of sisters to gather around you if you fall and you know, need some extra support. So I think that's really a really powerful thing that women can share and give to each other.
Yeah, I love the quote, the greatest risk is not taking one. And so it really is helpful. Like, I mean, to Liz's point completely, like it's really powerful to know that if we do take a risk and if we fail, there's going to be someone there to help us and catch us. And that's the beauty of the sisterhood. That message is so strong and powerful when it comes to stepping into fear and pursuing passions, is having that network and that sisterhood, knowing that they're going to be there to support you and to catch you if you fall. You know, it's going to give you that confidence to take the plunge, you know?
I agree. The sisterhood is important, but going back home to your actual where you grew up is more important. My dad, the way I get over fear, because my parents were both in civil rights, is my dad used to say, there's nothing to it but to do it. So I don't get caught up, because they never taught us about gender inequality. They just said, Rhonda, if this is what you want to be, all I'm asking is that you be the best that you can be. Right? Whatever it is, if you decide to make bread, just be the best bread maker you could possibly be. And that's how their attitude was. They never gave us limitations on what we could do or what we couldn't do. And I love that about my parents. So while we try to build these relationships outside of our home, you have to have that same stability within your own family unit to be able to have those bonding relationships. And I have girls that I just talked to one that's now in Costa Rica. She's going to start our Costa Rica camp. She was there the very first day that this all started, and she was actually on the board when we put the Africa Surf International together. And now she's looking at us and she's saying, Rhonda, look where you are. And I said, I wouldn't be here without you. I mean, we've had this relationship now for like 20 years almost, and she's known since I walked on the sand the very first time, all awkward with the wrong board shorts on, everything. She absolutely stayed with me, and then I didn't hear from her for a while, and then I hear from her, and I've watched everything you've done. You know, those are the girls that came from my family unit, just holding all my girls together. And I have a very small, tight-knit group of women who just continue to empower me, whether they see me every day or they see me every 8 years. They're just there for me. And so I put that on my parents to be able to tolerate different ideologies within my own friend unit, right? Because each one of us is doing something different. I have a high fashion model, and then I have a tour manager, you know what I mean? So we all connect on different levels, but we make sure that communication is number one. And so when you have that kind of close-knit relationship, you can call them like right before you have an event, Or like right before this, I had to call one of my friends and I was just like, I need to just talk to you for a minute. And they're on the other line going, okay, girl, you're getting ready to do another panel. Okay, so this is, okay, are you calm? And they run you through it, because this is not an easy job for me. This is not one of those things that you just jump into. It's very, very hard to be in the position that I'm in and then be able to stay sane, because it's always an up and down. There's always beauty. And then the next day you have this horrible situation like what's going on in South Africa. I can tell you, yeah, I'm getting ready to have this wonderful contest. I'm going to be the first African-American to do it, blah, 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 all this other stuff. But now my girls are, all 60 of them are in one house trying to stay alive. So we all have to stay close. So I can call my people in South Africa and say, can you take over sanitary products? Can you take them food? Can you take them fuel? Whatever they need. These are the type of friends and relationships that keep me past the fear, because I was stuck in Africa for over a year. And I'm not kidding when I say it was a whole different type of sisterhood over there. Then entire villages were taking care of me. People were bringing me food every day because they knew I was stuck and I was stranded. I didn't know the language. I didn't have a job. All I was there to do was film. Thank God I got a Webby for it, but I was there to film Haju's movie. And I said, in the end, you say, okay, it was worth risking that fear, because now look where Black women are in surfing.
So we're coming sort of full circle here and wrapping up our time together. So my question before we close is, there are a lot of women out there, myself included, who, there's so many options with regard to becoming an activist, right? There's just, sometimes it's like overwhelming. And so the question is like, where do you start, right? Like, what would you suggest in terms of where would a woman start who wants to step into this realm of activism? And also, in order to do that, just tapping into that conversation about fear and strength, each one of you is such an amazing human and a powerful woman. So like, what are some of your tips for stepping into that most powerful self, like sort of facing down the unknown, the fear? So how do we do it? How do we begin? And then how do you lean into it when you're feeling unsure? Paige, will you start us off?
Yeah, I think the most powerful tool that we have as women, and a tool that I think in the past we have maybe been taught not to use, but it's our voice. And our voice really matters. And I know a lot of friends around me grew up in households that were very different than the way that I was raised. And my mom taught me from a very young age to speak up and to use my voice for things that I truly care about. And I think that is something that we can share with all the women around us, that your opinion matters, and to sit at the table and to speak up about issues that need to be talked about more, and to not be afraid and to not live in fear. We need to be able to, use your truth in your family and your communities and make the world a better place.
Amazing. Thank you, Paige. Becky, what about you?
Well, I think as far as where to start, this is part of the empowerment thing too, right? If we're talking about like eco-anxiety and like looking at the environment and looking at like the huge like mountain that we have to scale in order to really create positive change, I think realizing that we can take things into our own hands and taking a look within, and realizing that we as individuals can be the change we wish to see. And if millions of us do that, then there it is. You know what I mean? So it's been really cool working in action sports for so long, watching the evolution of athletes specifically moving into the roles of environmental activists and advocates, and like watching, let's say, Paige, launch her trashy selfie project with Sarah Hauser. That's been super powerful and super beautiful to watch. Like, you saying, hey, I want to work with my sponsors and I want to work with other athletes to really like empower people to just clean up trash and post a selfie of themselves with their trash. And that makes that little seed that you plant within yourself makes you feel so good that you're like, oh, okay, that was cool. I'm going to do that again because that felt good to me, right?
Thank you so much, Becky. Liz, real quick, what about you?
Go ahead, Liz.
What's something we can do?
I think when you're finding yourself ready to want to do more, I think a really good Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson gives us a really good Venn diagram. It's super helpful. She says to look at what you are really good at. So first take what skills you have, then look at what you love, what's going to make you get up and get out of bed every morning. And then look at what needs to be done. What's the work around you in your community, or you know, what needs to happen? What do we need to do? And where those three things intersect is where you can be, you know, you can kind of find your stepping stone to get going in the right direction. I think I really love that.
Yeah, I do too. That's an awesome piece of advice. Thank you. Rhonda.
So I'm gonna go back to my family again because there've been some wonderful people. My dad said when you get a skill, right, you go back into your community and use it for the greater good. And that, you know, my mom wanted me to be an attorney because she was, you know, she was in law and, you know, all that stuff your parents are, right? And I didn't want to be an attorney because I felt like that was too much reading and I wanted to spend more time at the beach. And it wasn't until she saw me, and my mom has been, you know, one of the, it's just amazing. Like after she passed away, then I really got to see the influence that she put on me, because she was, you know, head of the business professional women in like 1970s. She was like the first investigator for the EEOC. So all of this activism is in my actual DNA. When we were 5 years old, we were card carrying members of the junior NAACP. Okay, so by the time I'm 7, I'm falling into beach blanket bingo and I'm not letting go of surfing. So we're sitting in front of a television and my mom says, she sees me and Haji on CNN, and she looks at me and she said, "You did turn out like me." I said, "Mom, I didn't want to be an attorney, but I was fighting for women's rights. Like I didn't want to, you know, I'm doing basically the same work, but I just didn't want to go to law school and all that other stuff." And she was like, you know, she was proud. And that was probably the best moment of my life. So I don't have any fear because of my parents. I don't hold that with me. I don't get so locked into my feelings that I can't progress.
Well, ladies, I feel like this panel could take another 2 hours in terms of, you know, digging into some of this material together. I have so many more questions I would love to ask, but, you know, we're out of time. And I just wanted to really thank each one of you, and not only for showing up today, but for the work that you do and for the lights that you shine, you know, for activism and certainly for just the empowerment of women. In the bios, I know that there's links to each of your websites, or, you know, a place to reach out if people have questions. And I just encourage the viewers to be able to do that, to continue the conversations with each of these incredible dynamic women. So thank you again so much for being here. And, you know, I hope we can gather this group together at a later time for even more conversation. Thanks, ladies.